Thank you to all of our members for supporting this channel, especially the Lords and Commanders. If you're interested in extra battle reports and helping to support this channel, hit the link in the description box below. Go check out our channel partners, Baron of Dice and Grey Matter Games. They have some amazing products. There will be promo codes and links in the description box below.
We're live.
What is up, and welcome back, Wargamers. I fell asleep with my eyes open for about 15 seconds there, but I am very excited to get into this stream tonight. Andrew is joining me, the god of the fish elves himself, and here I am, I don't have a, give me a nickname. Give me a quick nickname.
God of the hats. Hat god.
God of the hat. Thank you. Thank you so much. So today what we're going to be talking about is we're going to be doing a bunch of faction focus. So we have decided to start reeling it back in from some of our crazy wild subjects we've been talking about and get into the meat and potatoes of what's going to be going on in 4th edition. If you're watching this on YouTube, please consider going to Twitch and subscribing to us, following. It's very helpful to help us grow this. There will be a link down below in the description box of the video. And if you're like Chris, who tunes in for all of our streams, thank you so much for being a part of our community. And thank you for those amazing models that you painted for us. Michael had a blast playing around with them in Idaho last week. So, Andrew, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you, and let's get started with this thing.
All right. Before did you have any? Have you been doing any hobbying recently, actually, David?
I have been doing some hobbying. I've been building custodies, which is like a dirty word because it has nothing to do with Age of Sigmar. But in the Age of Sigmar world, I have been editing a bunch of videos. Michael went out to Idaho last week and filmed 4 battle reports in one weekend and played an RTT. He's a freaking wild man. He can't be here tonight because he's been sleeping for the last 72 hours. He's just so tired from last weekend, apparently. But yeah, he did an amazing job. I'm very excited to show off the video that I just finished editing today. It's going to be Night Haunt. It's going to be Night Haunt versus Spiderfang, and it was just so interesting and fun to watch. The guys had just an absolute blast. Jeremy ran Night Haunt, and Michael was running Spiderfang, a bunch of spiders that he commissioned for one of our teammates, Ted, one of the Rage Babies, and he gave him a final send-off, and they just had an absolute blast. And then after that, I'm going to be editing a video that he did with Jared Brown, who's our most competitive and amazing player in our group. That one's going to be a member report later this week. And then I've just been keeping my eyes drawn to all the faction focuses and getting some ideas of what I'm going to be most interested in playing as soon as the next edition hits.
Mm-hmm. Yep. On my end, we've been finishing up the tournament prep. We're all ready. We got all our terrain painted for the tournament. That was a boatload of terrain that the guys and PD Rex did a great job on. And I just finished. I just did the shading step for my knights, for the cities, and because I prime everything in white, and like when you're painting something that's primed white, it just feels so terrible. Like it doesn't look right, doesn't feel right until you do that shading step, and then like once I did that, it was like you could just feel the dopamine just washing over me constantly. It was like it's like when you took like a really good dump, and like afterwards you just.
Yes,
you just like throughout
absolutely.
The day, you're like, why do I feel so happy? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I love it. I want to speak up for Michael since he couldn't be here tonight. Michael has been just doing so much stuff. I already talked about how he filmed in Idaho last week. I bought 2 of the terrain sets the Kron Spine Incarnate comes in, assembled those, and he took them with him. He's currently painting a bunch of terrain, so we have some amazing terrain for when 4th edition drops. We've got some amazing objective markers that we got from Grey Matter that are the right size, and he's going to be offering those real soon. So we're going to do a promo with him at the beginning of 4th edition, and getting ready to talk to Baron of Dice about doing some fun little promotions as well. Both of those affiliates are just fantastic. They've been great friends to us. They are reaching out to us, seeing how things are going, and always communicating. Love those guys. If you're watching this on YouTube, we've said this 100 times, but there are links down below. Go support those businesses because they absolutely deserve it.
That's awesome.
Also, Michael has been doing painting streams. If you're watching this on Twitch, you may know that already. And if you're watching it on YouTube, there are painting streams that Michael is doing intermittently through the course of the week. So if you like how our models look and you think that they're high level, then you can see how Michael does it. And I would say that he's gotten a lot more practice painting than me in the last year and a half. So kudos to him. Anyway, he is very busy behind the scenes. If he's not sleeping, he's working on Warhammer stuff. So he really cares about this thing and he works really hard. So shout out to him.
He is a one-man like miniature painting factory. It's pretty incredible.
Yes, his output is insane. Yeah.
Yeah, and thanks Ferdaberta for that sub there. Nice.
Absolutely.
Welcome to the stream.
Berta from Canada and sent us a bunch of stuff, and we're going to be throwing it together and painting it pretty soon. So thank you to you, star member, just a great stand-up guy. Thanks a lot, and thank you for subscribing.
That's awesome. Yeah, thanks. All right, going in, speaking of our members, we're going in to do some community highlights really quick before we get into our main topic. Starting with some of the paint stuff, the models have shown up in our Discord.
Yes.
Including, this, I freaking love this color scheme. Like, I'm a big sucker for like pastels and like the light highlights. And this is kind of inspiring me the way that, just that bright green, bright blue, fading to the pink and purple in the background.
Yes.
I'm hyped.
Anytime I see a paint scheme that utilizes warm and cool tones and makes it look cohesive, I'm amazed. That just looks so cool. If I tried to do that, it would be a hot mess. This was submitted by Boggy in our Discord. Well done to you. We got to look at one more Zinch picture before we move on, man. I think the next one is even more amazing. In my humble, maybe not so humble opinion, look at this Thaumaturge. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, he's beautiful. Again, like the varied color scheme going in there, because you pop the contrast with the reds.
Yes,
and he has different values too for each in saturation levels. So like the green and blue, the green is like somewhat desaturated, even though it's still very bright. And then you have a much more saturated blues and reds, so it's not muddled together. You have a good contrast between the two, which
yes,
just comes out.
And Boggy, you can take this as a compliment. It's meant to be one, but that's an amazing base. That's a real David base right there. Well done. All right, let's see what we got next.
All right. Next up, we have the giant blob of Nurgle, the Glotkin.
The Glotkin, yes. I absolutely love this model. I like how he blended different colors together. I think that it makes the model look a lot more interesting. And this is precisely what Michael and I decided to do for our paint scheme with Nurgle. It was just so good. He posted pictures from all different angles, but I love the head on, and I love that it's just chilling on an end table so you can get a picture of it. It matches very nicely to that green wall. So well done.
Mm-hmm. And is this the same guy, Solitaire?
This is Solitaire. Yep. This is a different person. I was just stoked on this cloak. I love the little flames that he worked into that. That takes a lot more work than it looks like. I've tried to do stuff like that, and it's challenging. So well done. Really, really cool.
Really good brush control. I can see you can just see it developing. Like he didn't want to go full realistic flames, but he found something very effective by like tracing and varying the width of the flame to make it and tapering it towards the end to make it just very evocative and emotional, almost veiny too, but so it has this like magical kind of aura to it too that I really like. It's an effective cloak flame.
I'm a firm believer that if you do a really nice cloak, it makes the rest of your model look better.
Pretty much. Yeah.
The shading on cloaks and the easy edge highlights and dry brushing that you can put on them can really bring depth and breadth into your model. Mm. And he's done a great job of that here. Yep, well done.
Mm-hmm. And is this Yeah.
This
Mad
is
Mentat.
Mad Mentat. Now,
And
Mad Mentat, if you ever see this, I want to know if your screen name has anything to do with Fallout, because I've been using a lot of Mentats while I'm playing that game lately.
I thought that was
Anyway,
a Dune reference.
probably.
Anyway.
I'm getting way off subject. Let's look at this amazing model. Kit Bashed Stormfiend. What do you think of this model, Andrew?
This is I'm just trying to pick out the parts. My brain is like confused because I know, like, I recognize these pieces from 40K mostly. You got chaos bits on the bottom, and I can't quite tell where the guns are coming from. Yeah, it might be a 3D. Is it a 3D print? I don't know. It's like my brain is just like shattering into a million different places where you got all these different pieces. So
It's so cool, man.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
it's only a rat from like the sternum up, which is really cool and interesting to me. It's just barely still a rat.
Yes, it has replaced the weak flesh with the strength of steel.
Yeah, it's how they match the ruination chamber. They're just barely little pieces of souls left in their body, and this is also what that feels like with this rat. I couldn't not show this off because I just absolutely love it. Well done, Mad Mentat.
Mm-hmm. And then this is Michael's recent project where he's going with the Idoneth. And again, this is one of the most, in my opinion, this is one of the most effective ways to kind of like do Idoneth in mass. And Michael's going to be doing these guys in mass, is to give them like a pretty strong like lighting effects, and he's going for like a synth wave kind of vibe with them, with a lot of the pop happening at the blades. I did not go this route, and it takes a much longer time when you have to get every detail on the models.
Yeah, I really like the yellow color contrast. I think his goal is to shade it down a little bit and add in some deeper color, like some orange,
Yeah.
like a rusty, darker orange. And then I think that the skin looks fantastic, and he hasn't finished the cloaks at all and the bases, but this is kind of just a little snapshot of what our Idoneth Deepkin army may look like, because we have a lot of it now.
Yeah.
When he was in Idaho, Jared and Ted hooked him up with a ton of Idoneth Deepkin, so he's really excited about that.
Yeah.
So yeah, well done, random person who we don't need to say his name. Moving on.
Yeah, the Disco Deepkin. Moving on is not a member of a community, but I think it's a very great art piece itself. This little Nurgling here.
Submitted by Amenephis, yes. This is I'm sorry. I can't look straight at it or I'll laugh. So I was telling Andrew that this reminds me of a extremely good idea done poorly. I think it's supposed to be a minion.
Oh, I see it now. Oh, dang, I see it. I did not see that.
It's so, oh man.
Yeah,
it's so good.
That is beautiful. I see the potential in there. I see the desire, the creativity underneath the surface of this Nurgling.
It's like when you see something on Pinterest, like a cake that looks like a dog or something, and you're like, I'm gonna do that. And then have you seen those posts where it's like people that try stuff from Pinterest and it just goes terribly wrong?
Yeah.
You're gonna
Yeah,
you're gonna have to go to the next thing now. I don't know why that's so funny to me, but it is.
Yeah, you gotta bake. You gotta bake the Nurgling for at least 15 more minutes.
Oh,
and
man.
this is not community, but this is one of the meme. Dude, I love this. What do you see here, David?
I don't quite understand this, but it's funny. It's like a cat and a knight inside of a knight.
Yes. So this is a great use of the Adeptus Titanicus models in a 40K in a 40K context, because you could run these, like, they're about the size of like a space marine, and so having your knight pilot a knight, and then I don't know where the cat, like, but I love it.
Like the little alien inside of the android in Men in Black.
Yes.
And
yes.
that makes me just happy every time I look at it.
With
So that one
Orion's
was also
belt.
from Amenephis. Yeah. Thank you for that.
All right. And then finally our member of the week. We featured this model last week, but this is a great look at it. Go ahead, David, and describe.
Yes. So a gentleman named Sergey who lives in Belgium, his handle on our Discord is Disruptor. He reached out and he offered to commission paint a model for us for free, which was a very, very nice gesture from him. And he spent the last couple weeks working on this for us, and it turned out absolutely fantastic. The the colors are exactly what we asked for. You can check this guy out on Instagram. He's got an Instagram. There's a link in our Discord. Anyway, it turned out fantastic, and he just shipped it from Belgium yesterday. So I don't know how long it's going to take to get here, but I'm very excited. So, Disruptor, I deem you member of the week, and thank you for your efforts and just your outrageous generosity for offering to paint this. Obviously, he's not the only person in our community who's done fun stuff like that for us before, but since it just happened recently, I had to shout him out. So thank you so much, and well done.
Yeah, I can't get enough of the wings. I keep staring at the wings and then the muscles. That's always the thing with miniature painting is you want to go further than you think you need to in the contrast. And what he does with the muscles, it just really brings out the shape to really emphasize the model underneath, and it's very satisfying to look at.
Yeah, and I really like the base that he did. He did a very good job of not overpowering the gorgeousness of the model, but still making it just look very clean, very beautiful. The use of tufts makes sense, different sizes, and just the marble that he did on the busted up statue is fantastic. And I love purple and pink monsters, so my mouth waters just thinking it how I'm going to play this.
So
All the way up until it's, yeah.
This is a purple people eater, not a purple people eater.
I love it. I love it so much. I'm very excited. Yeah.
Could use more shrubbery. Always more shrubbery, in my opinion.
Yes. You got to get more. You got to get more tufts.
Yeah. No, that's great.
All right.
I love it. All right.
That's going to round out community highlights.
Yes, that's it. That's it for the community highlights. And we're now going into our main topic, which I am very excited about, which is Idoneth Deepkin. Everything else is icing on the cake. We're just going to be talking about Deepkin for the next 3 hours. No, no. We're doing the faction focuses, starting with my elves, the emo elves of the deep, the Idoneth Deepkin. All right, so we'll go through the various rules. You guys all know how the Idoneth Deepkin, who they are, how they work. So we'll just go over starting with the battle traits here. Now, most of these are very similar to what we had before, but we have some new ones too. We have the Ethersea Voyagers. So in the deployment phase, pick a friendly regiment led by an Idoneth Deepkin hero, and set them aside, and they can then deep strike in the movement phase.
Yes.
Yeah, and not even at the end of just in the movement phase. Okay, that's cool. So
No. Once per battle, deployment phase. You can take one of your regiments and you can put it in reserve.
yes, and then Raiders from the Deep is the rule that pairs with that. In your movement phase, you pick a friendly Idoneth Deepkin unit that is traveling in the Ethersea and set them up on the edge of the battlefield, wholly within 9 of the battlefield edge and more than 9 from all enemy units.
They got deep strike. Sweet.
Yeah, just any regiment. So that's going to be hero and his cadre of whatever. So I love that because like in the past it was tied to that one specific hero that was 150 points. And you're gonna, to be able to do that with like any given unit, it makes sense from the lore perspective. They should be coming in from all angles. And it is going to be very, you can just to be able to do that. You don't have to do that either. Like you could just pick it and go as you want. It's going to be pretty awesome to have.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep, they can deep strike, and they're fast, and movement is king. So that's just going to mean that they play better on the tabletop. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
So very strong upgrade, which is fantastic. You got to be loving that. Let's talk about the Tides of Death, man.
Yes, Tides of Death is very similar to what it was before. So each each battle round, you're going to have one of these tides, and they shift over time. So you start out with low tide. For the rest of the battle round, subtract 1 from hit rolls for shooting attacks that target these units. For each, this applies to all Idoneth Deepkin units. Subtract 1 from hit rolls for shooting attacks that target those units, and subtract 1 from hit rolls from combat attacks that target this unit if it did not use any charge abilities this turn. So last time it was +1. You counted as in cover, so you had +1 to your save for shooting and for melee if you did not charge. So this is -1 to hit. So we'll see what kind of stuff can give Idoneth +1 to save. I hope that there's a little bit there because a lot of our stuff is flying, so we're not going to be able to take advantage of cover anyway. What was that?
Battle round. Battle round 2 is flood tide, so your army can run and shoot and charge.
Yes.
That's also very good.
And it's shoot and or. Last time it was either or. So my turtle would have to pick between the two of them if he wanted to move quickly, but now he can go as fast as he wants. Battle round 3, I'm kind of disappointed. They're keeping high tide exactly the same. You just get strike first across all of your Idoneth army. This is why
you're sad about that? I think it's really good.
It's amazing. Like, I'm happy about it in a tournament, but we'll talk about some other stuff later. But like, I don't want to take this version of Idoneth against anybody that is new, that doesn't know what they're doing. They will die. And this is usually the reason why is battle round 3 is strikes first. So once that hits, you can just wipe an enemy if they're not properly set up to deal with it. And then battle round 4, for the rest of the battle round, this unit can use retreat and still shoot and or charge. In addition, for the rest of the battle round, no mortal damage is inflicted on this unit by retreat abilities. So this is the one that comes in the least typically, because after battle round 3, you typically have destroyed everything. But the ability, again, to shoot and or charge, so that means sharks and turtles are not halfway, nerfed by having to retreat. You can, and you don't take the mortal damage, which is great.
Yes.
Yeah. And in turn 5, for everybody who doesn't play Idoneth, turn 5 it goes right back to low tide because the tide comes in and the tide goes out, and it's low tide again.
Yeah, so you've got to be happy with the way that the tides are working. I'm already looking at okay, if there's some regiments that are, depending on what their composition is, if you can bring down a couple screens, something that you want to get into combat, it's big and scary. Just look at how the tides work, right? So you come out of reserve.
Yeah.
You're -1 to hit if you get doubled, or if you don't get the turn. If you get the turn, you're running and shooting and charging into your opponent. And you clear the flank. They waste a turn getting over to you, and then it's high tide, and then you fight them and kill them. So it's I think that's going to be a deadly combination of battle traits, and it's going to play out really nice. We should look at some war scrolls.
Yeah. All of these things are buffs from before.
It's good. It's really good.
And before the war scrolls, we have the sub-factions, the battle formations. Yes. The one that they featured is the Ferocious Predators, which is +1 to hit for combat attacks made by the companions. Because mounts are like one of the biggest things in Idoneth Deepkin. Sharks, turtles, and eels. And the ability to buff those. We haven't seen, this is I think the first one that specifically buffs companion weapons. And so you're hints at more rules in the future that are going to be specifically buffing companions, which is great because scaling in the past has been like, if you have a giant mount, it's going to get all these crazy benefits from whatever rule, but now they have to specify companions. And Idoneth Deepkin hopefully will have more rules that specify companions, because it is a big feature of their faction. But it's also mitigated by being split from stuff that benefits everything else.
Beastclaw Raiders is another example of how they're doing this. If you charge with a Stonehorn, the companion weapons get a +1 to damage, which is the same as before. It's just worded differently. But I like that they're specifically saying companion weapons.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be really easy to understand and interesting.
Yeah.
All right.
And I'm excited about the future battle formations, like the ones with the extra cat with pluses to cast, or the Namarti auxiliaries, and then some sort of hit and run thing going on. I'm excited about that. And this one's big. The one of the featured spell here, Steed of Tides, is now. It used to be pick a Idoneth hero, within 6, and then they can teleport. This one is pick any Idoneth Deepkin unit, and you could remove the target from the battlefield and set them up again 9 inches from all enemy units. And this is unlimited on a 6. So it's very likely to go off, as long as you don't get them bound, and you could just like unlimited teleporting, which is a very Idoneth Deepkin thing. They're always coming in and out, poking at different angles, doing whatever watery movements that they do. But this is extremely powerful too, because like you could like any time in the battle, if you need to be on the other side of the board to go take care of something, you could send somebody to do that. And you can also cast this in the opponent's turn. So the opponent's going to charge at a unit you don't like. You just remove the unit from the battlefield and put it completely elsewhere. And you can even do like a counter charge into them or something, just to like really mess up your opponent's plans.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that that's a fantastic spell. It's just going to play well into the other battle traits that we've seen so far.
Yeah.
Hey, units.
Unit focus. So, starting with the Eidolon of Mothlan, aspect of the sea. So 10-inch move, 12 health, 3 up save, 5 control. So he's about the same as before. He became a monster though, and he lost a little bit of movement. Blast of Abyssal Energy it used to be D3, now it's 3. His size, trident, and scepter got merged into one attack. That is 3s and 3s, run 1 D3. So that's like 2 eels. And his fangs is no longer 2d6. It's just 6 attacks, 4s and 4s, 1. Which I'm kind of bummed about. I liked getting 12 attacks on the fish. He no longer rerolls. Yeah. He no longer rerolls cast, but instead is +1 to cast. Do you want to go over a Tsunami of Terror, David?
Sure. Pick up to 3 visible units, different visible enemy units within 12 inches of this unit to be the targets. Roll d6. This is a cast value of 8, by the way. Subtract 1 from save rolls for combat attacks that target those units until the start of the next turn. So for the end of the turn, -1 to save. That's strong.
Yeah.
And you know it's strong because look at the cast value.
Yeah.
He's +1 to cast, so this is semi-reliable since we're averaging 7 on 2d6. This is pretty good. Pretty good spell. And yeah, I think that you're going to find a lot of use for this hero. He's Wizard 2, has a 5-up ward and a 3+ save.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, and monster keyword. So that's fantastic. This looks like a solid buff rather than a side grade to him so far. And then why don't you go through his last 2 abilities, his passive and his once per turn?
Yeah, so his once per turn is it's a monstrous rampage. If he's being charged by an enemy unit on a 3-up, they can't use command. So it's a roar when he's being charged, and which is very powerful defensively. And then Tranquility of the Abyss. Ignore negative modifiers to the control scores of friendly Idoneth Deepkin while they are wholly within 12 of this unit, which is really good because Idoneth typically do not have high control in their army. So the ability to mitigate any sort of fear stuff is going to be great.
That's really nice. So he makes people brave, he reduces armor saves, and he's a reliable caster who's quite tanky.
Yeah.
So
overall,
can't go wrong.
Yeah, overall, he's pretty similar. We'll have to see how the points play out. He does have a lot of keywords, so a lot of anti stuff is going to be able to target him. But he just has a lot of utility, especially with that infinite teleport that we got going on, which is going to be awesome. So he's in the same place in my book in terms of like, I'm going to try to bring him as much as I can.
He's looking strong. He's probably going to be like 110 points, I think. What do you think? Do you think 110 points would be a pretty good value for him? Would you use him if he was
I'd
110?
take him at 110.
It would. I don't know. I'd put him in if I still had room in my list, but I don't know. That's a lot of points. All right, let's talk about the Tidecaster. I'll run through this one.
Mm-hmm.
He has a staff that does terrible damage, 3s, 4s, -1 Ren D3. At least she gets 3 attacks. And then her little companion bites you for terrible damage and no Ren. And then she has a once per turn ability in your hero phase. So this is your hero phase only. Make a ritual roll of D6. On a 3+, pick one of the following effects to apply. The first one is Creeping Mist. Deepkin units cannot be targeted by shooting attacks unless the model is within 12. So they've taken a battle trait and they have locked it into this little Tidecaster, that's maybe the only sad thing I've seen so far. But I like the way that they changed the Tide anyway. Surging Stream, add 1 to run rolls and charge rolls. Can be very helpful in certain situations, like Battle Round 2. You can run and charge with your army.
Mm-hmm.
And each time an enemy uses a retreat ability after the effect of the ability has been resolved, D3 mortal wounds.
That should be on top of the other D3 mortal wounds that they take when they retreat, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
So, yeah, fun little hero. Very squishy. Go up to her squishiness for me.
Yeah. She's...
I can see it. Okay.
Oh.
Go ahead.
Yeah, she lost a pip of save. She was a 4-up before, which made her actually surprisingly tanky. She lost her ward as well. So I'm hoping she can get that. But
oh no!
I know.
Level 1 wizard. Yeah, she's still takeable if she stays pointed the way she was. What was she, 110?
I personally think she's almost an auto take, as long as it's not too crazy. Because she's taken all the Isharan rituals, which used to happen on 1 turn, depending on the tide. And now it's a 3-up, so it's going to be 3 out of 5 turns, hopefully, or 2.5 out of 5 turns, however many.
And they pair with the tide. Yeah, they pair nicely with the tide. I agree.
Yeah.
She's so squishy, though. So
she's so squishy. And she is the only other caster aside from the Eidolon. That's the other thing that's frustrating about her. Which means you kind of have to take her because you want that teleport. And the ability to just can't shoot me outside of 12 on 3 out of 5 of your turns is pretty crazy. But again, like the 3-up, like I've been running Pontifex, and a 3-up is either a 6-up or a 2-up, like depending on how things go.
You have a 1 in 3 chance of failing, so yeah. I mean, it's not guaranteed. I mean, you'll play full battles where this doesn't happen once, but when it does, and when the stars align, and you can match the abilities to the tide, you're going to be in really, really good shape. Yeah. What are the war scrolls we got for these guys?
Yeah. So the other war scroll we have is the Alopex. So his movement went down to 12 inches. Still 8 health, 4-up save, 2 control. I was hoping he'd go to 3. He's kind of a mini monster, but he's only 2. The Harpoon and Net Launcher have kind of been squished into a very similar profile. Both of them are 2 attacks, 3s and 2s, rend 1, damage 3. But the Harpoon has +1 rend against monsters, and the Net Launcher has +1 rend against cavalry. So these guys are like, yeah, they're an answer to a thing kind of a unit. The barb hooks and blades, 4, they got an extra attack on that, but it's 3s and 4s. And the bites, again, 3 attacks, hit on 4s, wound on 2s. So monster profile, rend 2, 2 damage, +1 rend against monsters. So there'll be 3 rend against monsters.
I like what they did. I like that the shooting is a little bit more reliable as far as damage output is concerned, especially if you're bringing the right models and picking the right targets.
Yeah.
That means that your sharks have a role to fill, so you're not just taking, 1 net launcher and 5 harpoons.
Yep.
I mean, you potentially would be like, wow, I don't like cavalry, so I would like to have 2 or 3 sharks that could deal with that. So that's great. I like that they streamlined their profile a little bit. I'm happy with the ranged weapons and melee weapons. I think that is looking real nice.
Yeah. They've got the same passive ability as last time, where if there's pretty similar +1 attacks characteristics while it's within 6 inches of any damaged enemy units, or within 6 inches of enemy units that have had models slain in the same turn. Okay, in the same turn. That's actually a little technical difference right there. But yeah, +1 attack when they smell blood, essentially. That little slain in the same turn is annoying because like you don't know when that's gonna come. Before it was just if they had slain units.
Yeah. Well, you just shoot them and then you charge into them.
Yeah, essentially. But the big one, the big effect is the ensnared effect. Pick an enemy monster or cavalry unit that had any damage points allocated to it this turn by the unit's shooting attacks to be the target. Roll a dice on a 3-up until the start of your next turn. Subtract 1 from the number of dice rolled when making charge rolls for the target to a minimum of 1. So that's pretty huge for me. It is kind of unlikely to go off because you have to damage the unit and then roll a 3-up. But you don't have to. You can do this multiple times. It doesn't say once per phase. It's any shooting phase. So just do it on all your sharks. Yeah, and this is again one of those reasons why I wouldn't want to take Idoneth Deepkin into somebody who doesn't know what they're doing against Idoneth Deepkin, because being able to deny their ability to charge, you could do this in their turn, is pretty insane. I don't know. Yeah,
very good ability.
Yeah.
It says because it says this unit, so I see some spam in our future. That's strong.
Yep.
Very, very strong.
You thought the shark span was over, and
nope.
Yeah, and then the last one we have here is the Ishlian Guard. You did not see these guys much in third, but now you will be seeing them quite a bit more. David, why don't you go through their profile?
They're very fast at a 14-inch move. Their control is 1, so not great there, but that's not why you're taking them. They have health 4 and a 4+ save. They have their Hell Sabers, 3 attacks, 3s, 4s, -1/1, anti-infantry, which is great because a lot of screens are made up of infantry. And if it's anything like 40k, we might have heroes with infantry keyword as well. Femora's Fangs and Lashing Tail, 3 attacks, 4s, 3s, so just flipping that profile, -1 rend, D3 damage with the companion ability keyword. So they have 2 abilities. One is used in any combat phase. It's important to separate any from your. So this means in both turns, pick an enemy unit in combat with this unit to be the target. On a 3-up, subtract 1 from the attack characteristic of the target unit's weapons for the rest of the turn. So they make things -1 to attack. Then we're looking at -1 to dice when you charge and all kinds of other fun shenanigans that you can get into. So that's a very, very strong ability. And then their passive is Galv Shields. This unit has a ward of 5+ if it charged in the same turn. So they get tanky when they go in. They reduce your attacks if you try to countercharge them or charge them first. And they have some decent anti-infantry damage output. So I like this scroll very much. I think that, like you said, they fit a specific role. Fast attack, harassing screens, getting objectives, and then getting back into the castle or to where they need to be. They have a lot of mobility and utility. So the fact that they are giving them the damage output and the abilities to boot is fantastic. Very, very good.
Yeah. Yeah, great counter charge option. Great in small units because you could do this multiple times. The -1 to attacks characteristic. It doesn't say you can't, unless there's going to be a general rule about you can't be affected by the same ability twice. You might be able to spam that out and give people like -2 attacks until it's and it doesn't say minimum of 1. So like there might be an FAQ around that, but as it stands,
I'm sure there will be, but you'll get to exploit it a few times before the fat comes through. So
yes, let's do a battle report. Let's do a battle report in July, and so I can do this.
Where I'll have 0 attacks and I'll be rolling 1d6 to charge for the entire game.
Yep.
Okay, so we're looking at Spearhead now. Let's look at a watered-down War Scroll, and let's move on. We only have 4 more of these to go through, Andrew.
All right, yeah, sorry. really hyped about this one. Yeah, so this is the Namarti Thralls. It's pretty much the same. Their ability has changed. +1 damage into monsters, and their anti-infantry +1 rend. So before they had +1 attack into anything with 1 or 2 wounds, or 1 wound, and then +1 damage into anything with 3 wounds or more. So that's got nerfed down to monsters, which I don't like. But they're still pretty dang good. And they'll be anti-infantry too. So against heavy infantry, they'll be rend 2, this is probably going to translate pretty straightforwardly into the main game, but I like it.
Well, I will say your army just got much stronger. So taking a small debuff or side grade, if you will, on those thralls is not going to change. You're going to be doing great. You're going to be doing just fine. Plus, they're infantry, so anti-infantry is a thing now apparently. So thralls are going to be a little bit easier to clap potentially.
Yeah, these were my favorite. These were my favorite unit in 3rd. Like I would measure everything according to the Namarti. Like I would anything that came out, I'm like, oh, that's just like 9 Namarti against something. Like, so I'm a little sad, but it's still going to be great.
They're still going to be fine. They have a role. They're just not as they don't have as much utility, but hopefully the Achillean Thrall Master will give them some more interesting juice to go along with these abilities that are baked into their War Scroll. So we'll see.
Looking forward to it. All right, moving on to
next army, please. Serve me the Nurg.
The Nurgle.
Well, everybody knows that watches our YouTube channel that I absolutely love Maggotkin of Nurgle, and I'm very excited to play with some of their new rules. So I'm going to very quickly go through their battle traits. So once per turn, at the end of any turn, they have an ability called Blessed by the Plague Father. Pick one of the following effects. Infect. Pick an enemy unit that is in combat with a Maggotkin of Nurgle unit to be the target. Or Spread. Pick a diseased enemy unit to be the target. Each other enemy unit within the target's combat range has the disease keyword. So you're basically diseasing things. Easy, right? And then let's go down to the passive. If a diseased enemy unit uses an ability that would heal or return slain models to it, instead of healing or returning the models to it, you no longer have a diseased keyword. So this is fantastic. Disease does 2 things. It does damage and it prevents healing, which can be real big if you've got an enemy hero that's sitting on a couple wounds and it would really like to heal, but it has to get rid of that darn disease first, and then you're able to kill it before that happens. That's a great little thing to be able to do. Racked with disease. Roll a d3 for each diseased enemy unit. On a 2+, inflict an amount of mortal damage on that unit equal to roll. So either nothing happens, they take 2 mortal wounds, or they take 3 mortal wounds.
Yep.
So that's great. Little bit less damage output potentially, depending on what kind of build you were using with Nurgle, but I like this. It's easy to use, and it's just chip damage. Chip damage does some bad things to you over the course of a game, especially if you have little 5 wounded heroes like a lot of armies do. So I love it. It's simple and fantastic.
Yeah. One thing I noticed here is that you're only doing this to 1 enemy unit per turn, correct? Or
so every unit has that ability to pass the disease.
Once per turn for the army, end of any turn, pick an enemy unit, and then pick a disease unit, right?
Correct. I'm assuming that's the way that it works. Maybe you pick one. That would be very, very sad. But I'm pretty sure that just you're in combat with Nurgle, you're getting disease spread to you. That makes the most sense. So that's what we're going to go with.
I hope
Some of these things are muddy water because we don't have all of the specific rules. I'm assuming that when you see army in parentheses, that might apply to your entire army, especially since it's in the battle trait section. And then maybe they'll have parentheses that say unit or pick 1 unit, or I don't know. We'll figure that out.
Really hope that's the case, because otherwise it's kind of rough.
Yeah, that would be cripplingly terrible of a battle trait if you could only pick 1 unit at the end of every turn.
Yeah. All right, and then the Taliban of Nurgle is one of the battle formations. From the second battle round onwards, add 1 to the amount of mortal damage inflicted by the erect with disease ability. So you're doing 2d3 plus 1 damage, guaranteed to do damage to us, which is great.
D3 plus 1. D3 plus 1. So the most damage
Oops.
that you could do is 4 mortal wounds to a unit at the end of the turn. That's great, though. I mean, like I said, that chip damage, like, once you disease a couple foot heroes or a key piece, and it's just taking that damage every turn, that can be really, really big. So I enjoy that. I think that that's a great passive, and that's going to be just a really point and click battle formation that you can take. And that's, that's really fun and inviting for new players, but sometimes it's nice to turn your brain off with certain abilities and sub-faction abilities and blah, 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 and just focus on board positioning and playing your game and getting your points, that kind of stuff. So really good.
Yep. In the future, you're going to have guys that explode on death and probably disease people when they die. Cavalry that can deep strike, it looks like, freely buzz down from the skies. And it looks like something that just plants trees. So that's going to be cool.
Sounds exactly like the sub-factions from the last book.
All right.
So yay!
Yay.
It's the same. Here's a spell lore.
This is their unlimited spell lore. Fleshy Abundance. Pick a Maggotkin Nurgle Wizard, and then pick a friendly Maggotkin Nurgle unit wholly within 12. If they're damaged, heal D3. If the target is not damaged, subtract 1 from wound rolls that attack for attacks that target that unit until the start of your next turn.
Yep. So healing or cloud of flies, kind of, but with wounds. Yeah, I like it. I like that it's unlimited.
Mm-hmm.
So being
yeah, it's no longer +1 to health, which is big. We'll see if that comes into play somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And yeah, -1 to wound across like various units is going to be pretty powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Moving on to the Great Unclean One. Why don't you go through this one, David? Oh, there we go.
Okay, so I'll just go ahead and say that I checked, and Nurgle, they still all have a 5-up ward, so that's fantastic. Down at the bottom is where you will find wards in this edition. He has 20 health with a 4+ save and a 5-up ward. That's very, very chunky. It doesn't sound that chunky because of 4-up save, but it is really hard to kill a Great Unclean One with certain armies, or when you're playing against a Great Unclean One with certain armies. Control 5. Move 6. He got some legs. He's been training his calves, quads, hamstrings, even his adductors and abductors.
Yeah.
So he can go 50% faster.
Wow.
I'm excited about that. Let's go into his melee and shooting profiles. I'm pretty stoked on what they've done with this. So Noxious Bile is a 7-inch range. That's the same. D3 plus 3. This used to be a D6. Freeze 2's -2, 2. It used to be -3, 2. And now you can shoot in combat. So thematically, that makes sense, and the functionality of it is very, very nice. So you go into him, he's very chunky, very hard to kill, and he has a pretty great shooting attack to do some damage into you. So more reliable, still short range, situational, shooting combat is great. Now, the melee weapons have changed quite a bit. He used to have a lot of different ways that you could kit him or whatever, but now we're just looking at colossal blight weapons. 4 attacks, 3s, 2s, -2, 4. It's just, he just smashes things. Having some big Ren 2 damage 4 attacks that are pretty reliable is great. And then his host of Nurglings, less attacks, 5/5s, no Ren 1, but auto wound.
Yep.
That's great.
Yep.
So he's more punchy, but you're not spreading disease via combat. You're spreading disease via proximity. So we'll see what happens with damage output. I think this will end up being kind of a side grade, probably meet the damage in the middle. But I like it. I'm liking that part of his scroll. When he's battle damaged, he loses 1 whole attack. So bracketing is way, way less impactful from what I've seen so far. I mean, that's great. Okay, once per turn in your movement phase, you have a Locus of Nurgle. Pick a Maggotkin of Nurgle demon unit that started the battle with 3 or more models and that has been destroyed to be the target. Roll a dice, and on a 4-up, set up a replacement unit. That's just great. Very, very good.
Yeah, that could be what, a six unit of bloat drones, or like.
Yeah. So if you reinforce a unit of drones, right? You've got 6. You can only single reinforce in this edition, so you get 3 back. And then if you have a reinforced, like, husk oil, then you can get a couple back. That's great. That's just strong. Like, recursion fit with a 5-up ward is going to make you happy if you're a Nurgle player. The great thing about Nurgle is it doesn't really matter how strong of a player you are. You still get to play the whole game. So if you like to play the whole game with an army, they're a great army to pick up. Then he has Bloated with Corruption once per turn. At the end of any turn, if this unit is damaged, pick up to 3 enemy units in combat with this unit to be the target, and roll a d3 for each target. On a 2+, inflict an amount of mortal damage on the target equal to roll. So he just puts out damage just slowly. Puts out damage slowly, can shoot in combat, and is very tanky with a scarier melee profile. That's a thumbs up for me.
Yep.
And then he's got a spell. Why don't you read that out?
All right. The spell is Plague Wind. Pick a visible enemy unit within 12 of this unit to be the target. On a 7, the target has the disease keyword. So he's just handing out disease. Like a gift.
Handing out disease, charging into stuff and handing out disease. He's just spreading the love. And that's what a great unclean one should do. I think they did a fantastic job with that war scroll. I love it. I really do. I think that the new disease thing is gonna change a little bit, but that's a lot of bookkeeping, and this is better. This is just better in every way as far as playability, and I love the way that this scroll looks.
Yep. It's just, are you diseased or are you not? Not how many diseases do you have?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
All right.
Go ahead and read over Sloppity Bilepiper.
The classic, ever loved, ever hated Sloppity Bilepiper. 4-inch move, 5 health, 5-up save, 2 control. Melee, 4s and 3s, rend 1, 2 damage. And his...
dude.
Yes, and his ability, Jolly Gut Pipes. Pick a friendly, visible Maggotkin of Nurgle demon unit wholly within 12 of this unit to be the target. On a 2-up, pick one of the following effects to apply for the rest of the turn. So not your opponent's turn, but the rest of the turn. Any combat phase. So that could be your opponent's turn or your turn. A stab and we will go. Add 1 to wound rolls for the target's attack. Early one evening, my pustule was seeping. Ward rolls cannot be made for the damage points inflicted by the target's combat attack. So to turn off wards on a 2-up, that's great.
Yeah, that's great.
It's amazing.
That's what we call pretty good.
Yeah. My love is like a ripe fart, the classic. Subtract 1 from hit rolls for attacks made by enemy units to target this target unit.
Yep, it's the same. Since when they fact it last time. Yeah, it used to be no pile-ins. -1 to hit is great. -1 to hit, no ward, or +1 to wound rolls. That is just a Swiss Army knife of a hero. You're not going to be able to summon him, so you better keep him safe because he has 5 wounds with a 5-up save and 5-up ward. Not the most defensive little dude around, but you're going to have a lot of things to tar pit the enemy units that are trying to kill this little dude while he buffs your whole army. So I absolutely love it. Yeah. Before we carry on, I'm going to go throw some hay to my goats because I can hear my Nubian screaming from right outside this window here. So I'll be back in 30 seconds. You can keep going and read the next thing if you want.
All right, sounds good. The next up is the Harbinger of Decay, the most beautiful model who hasn't been super useful up until now. 8-inch move, pretty fast for a Nurgle guy. 7 health, 3-up save, pretty dang tanky, and 2 control. Melee weapons, 3s, rend 1, 3 damage with mortal crits. Ooh, 3 mortal crits is always nice. And horse attacks, 5s and 3s, rend nothing, 1. His abilities are once per battle in the enemy hero phase, pick up to 3 enemy units within 24 of this unit to be the targets. Until the start of your next turn, subtract 1 from the move characteristics of each target and subtract 1 from the run and charge rolls from each target. That could be pretty amazing in different situations. Depending, like for run and charge for Idoneth, it's going to be -2 inches, -3 inches, because you're going to be subtracting from the movement and the charge, or run and the charge. And he also has a prayer on a 4, Omens of Decay. Pick a visible enemy unit within 12 inches of this unit via the target and make a chanting roll of d6. Subtract twice the current battle round number from the target's control score for the rest of the turn. If it was a 10-up, this ability affects all enemy units within 12 of this unit. I think that prayer is pretty dang good, especially
Pretty
late
strong.
game. Yeah. And that means that his first ability seemed like nice icing on the cake, but nothing like particularly strong. But that just adds to like what he can do. I think this prayer is really good.
I think it's very good too. Along with movement, standing on objectives is very important. So if you're standing on objectives and it's not helping you to score, then that's a big deal. Your hero phase, so you can pick an objective that he is just, slowly moving toward, and then take it over with your Blight Kings, who we're going to be talking about soon, because they have a buff to control score. So cool piece. I never picked it up because it wasn't highly impactful in the game, and it was locked in another box of miniatures for a while. So I'm excited to add this guy to my repertoire. I'm slowly trying to build a massive Nurgle army. It's pretty massive, but it's going to get bigger because I'm definitely going to get this guy, and I already got 3 more units of Blight Kings. Let's look at them.
He's definitely one of my favorite models in the game. Blight Kings! I love this. This is a bit complicated. I don't know if we can go through this whole thing.
Yes, first of all, I love how easy it is. I love their armor save, very much so.
3 up.
So they have a 4-inch move, 3 health on a 3+ save. That's great. Their control is 1, but wait, there's more. Their blighted weapons are absolute trash. 4 attacks, 3 threes, -1/1, no special abilities. So they just stand there. But they just stand there for a reason, because their passive is Bloated Bulk. Add 3 to this unit's control score while each model in this unit is contesting an objective you control. So the whole unit needs to be on the objective. It can be in your own territory, so they're fantastic for holding backline objectives. And if you have these just sauntering across the board and then slowly piling in and moving around and getting onto objectives and then counting as 4 each on those smaller objectives, that's going to be a problem for your opponent. So I really enjoy it. I like that they have a specific role, and because of their specific role, it's not damage output. So, but traditionally the Nurgle army just isn't a big damaging army. It just does chip damage over time, and they just stay on the board. They're just so hard to slap off the board. So that 3+ save, 5-up ward, wow, really, really good. They're gonna have a big role to be doing in the army. So that's great. Hopefully we see more of them on the table. And yeah, that's all I got to say about that.
Yeah. Incentivizes you to take MSU as well, right? Because you can get +3 for each unit instead of +3 for a reinforced unit.
Yes, and the entire unit needs to be contesting the objective. So if you take 10, then they're not going to be doing their job anymore.
Yeah.
Because those objectives are smaller. You could fit 10 on there if there's no other models on there yet. Maybe put 10 on your back objective and be like, that's 40. Go do something about it. You can't? Okay, no. Harbinger of Decay right there. Well, you had enough models to take it somehow, but now you don't. So yeah, it's great.
Quick note on that though, David. This is to the unit's control score, not to the control characteristic. So it's going to be 3 + 5 on a 5-man unit. So it'll be 8 on a 5-man
Oh,
unit.
dang it. I thought it was better than that. That's still good though. That's still good though.
That's one of those little things that we got to keep looking out for, because sometimes it affects the characteristics. Sometimes it's the whole unit's score.
Very good call out. And I mean, if you have 5 of these standing on an objective, that's going to be 50% of the objective because of their 40 mil base size and coherency and everything like that. So yeah, that's still really good. Still like it.
Yep. And our little watered down Plague Bearer scroll. Once again, 6 up save, 5 up ward, 2 health, 4-inch move, pretty much same as before. 4s, 3s, no rend, crit mortal. So instead of doing adding disease on 6s, they're just doing mortals on 6s, which is more efficient, I think, generally.
They never do any damage, so you might as well just find the 6s in the pile instead of rolling your 5s to wound or whatever, 3s to wound in this case, and just say, well, you took 3 wounds from mortal damage, you're diseased, and you might take 2 or 3 or 4 more depending on if you take that detachment. But once again, they just make very good screens. They're just, I mean, even with that 6-up save, it's just hard to chew through plague bearers. It's kind of hilarious how hard it is. If you haven't played against a bunch of Nurgle people before, then you don't know. But I've definitely just bounced off of a Nurgle army thinking that I have all the damage output in the world, because 5-up words are just so good, so good.
Yeah, you never. Yeah, when you look at them at first glance, you're always like, "Yeah, what's that?" But then you play against it, you're like, "Oh, it's just a bunch of goo that you can't push through."
Especially like a bunch of attacks that are high ren but single damage, or high ren but 2 damage, and then you still have a 5-up save into that. It's shocking.
Yeah, my Namarti get +1 rend against that, but rend 2 into that is not going to matter.
Right. I just say damage. Like, what's the damage? I mean, you don't care. You're like, oh my goodness, I have a save. Cool. Like, anyway.
They continue to get the -1 to hit and shooting, so you can't even deal with them there. All right, let's move on.
They're great. I love Nurgle. Let's move on. Very excited about Maggotkin. You're definitely going to see a ton of them. Running around, causing havoc on the channel.
And they look about they scale to about these guys' boogers. So, yeah.
They're like as big as a fingernail, maybe a toenail. If a beast of Nurgle is like a toenail size.
Yeah. Gargants. All right, they look really pretty. Battle traits. So, pretty similar to before. I'll go through it really quick. Timber, which is you do a roll-off with your opponent when a Gargant dies. And the winner picks a point on the battlefield within 3 inches, and you do D3 mortal damage on each unit, friendly and enemy, within 3 inches of that point if it has lower health characteristic than the model. So is that exactly the same as before? Roughly? I would think so.
Timber is largely unchanged. Yeah, the winner picks a point on the battlefield within 3 D3 mortal damage on each unit. Friendly and enemy within 3 inches of that point. Yeah, it used to not impact Mega Gargants. So, I mean, you're just going to have to be a little bit more precise, but they just hang out they hang out in duos a lot of the time. So, like, you might take D3, whatever. They're 35 wounded. What they do is they just focus on attrition, and that's just a fun little mechanic that you do at the end when they die.
And it's a health characteristic, so most of the Mega Gargants will be fine most of the time, unless a bigger one falls on them. And then Gargant Charge, pick a friendly. This is a rampage in the charge phase. Pick a friendly Mega Gargant that charged this turn and has not used a rampage. Then pick a visible enemy within 1 inch on a 2-up and inflict the amount of mortal damage. So D3 on. So it's basically just a stomp, an extra stomp or just a stomp, which is nice.
So interestingly enough, this is something that's going to come up time and time again. Is it says roll a D3 on a 2+. That means that you have to roll a 3+ if you're rolling a D6. So I'm going to get D3s, man, because I don't want to confuse anybody. And I don't want to confuse myself. So go buy yourself some D3s at baronadice.com.
And it's basically a cylinder, right? It's just like a cylinder with 3 sides. Yeah. All right. Next up, Earth-Shaking Roar. Why don't you do this one, David?
Pick a friendly Mega Gargant or Gargant unit that has not used a Rampage ability this turn to use this ability. Then pick an enemy unit in combat with it to be the target. Roll a dice. On a 3+, the target cannot use commands for the rest of the turn. That's great. You know what that is?
That's Roar.
That's Roar. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So the biggest, baddest monsters are getting all the old monstrous actions so
Yeah.
far. Let's read the next one.
All right. Colossal Slam. Pick a friendly Mega Gargant that does not use a rampage. So once again, these guys are all just doing this once per turn.
Yep.
And this is in the combat phase. Roll a dice on a 3-up. Remove the target. So after, you pick your Gargant. Pick an enemy monster or war machine within an inch. Roll a dice on a 3-up. Remove the target from the battlefield and set it up again within 1 inch of this unit using this ability. Then inflict D3 mortal damage on the target. So you're doing a suplex on a big monster or war machine, which is pretty fun. And you also just get to move them out of the way if there's something in the way. Like there's a lot you can do with this.
The damage thing is great, but this has two very important applications. So if we think about coherency in this edition, you can move something out of the way, and then with 3-inch coherency, you can just slap something that's standing next to it. And then the other application is pull it off of an objective. And this is any combat phase. So this is in your turn or the opponent's turn. So if you're standing on the objective and like you're thinking, okay, I want to get a monster in there because it has a higher control value. Well, that's sketchy because it might get suplexed off of the objective. So I've done that multiple times, and I've had that done to me multiple times, and it's impactful. You can fail battle tactics and lose objectives because of that ability. And a 3-up is not super reliable, but it's just scary enough to where you can't plan around getting a monster into combat with a Mega Gargant because that might go off the rails a little bit. So I dig it. It's similar. The old rule was that the Gargant would end up -1 to hit, like he made himself dizzy or hit his head when he fell down with the other monster or something, which was very, very frequently interpreted incorrectly that the enemy unit would be -1 to hit. So yes, this is streamlined, it's easier, and it's a very powerful ability.
Yep. And then the last one is jump up and down. So again, combat phase, pick a Mega Gargant and then pick an enemy infantry unit in combat with them. And roll a dice on a 3-up. Roll a dice for each model in the target unit. If it's a Gargant, inflict 1 mortal wound for each 6. If it's a Mega Gargant, inflict 1 mortal wound for each 5. So that's the what's that thing called? The Grave Tide. That you just get to do. So like, yeah, that's pretty crazy, especially when you have those reinforced like 20-man units, like the 20 or 40 blobs of Skaven and things like that. It can be really impactful.
Right. So like 40 zombies. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it has to have infantry keyword, right? Yep. So that one's new and strong. Mortal damage is going to be a little bit harder to come by. We're seeing that there is a bit of watering down for mortal damage with Mega Gargants when they charge. You used to roll a dice for each unit within 1 inches of a Mega Gargant after it charged. And on a 2+, you're doing D6 mortal wounds. If it's a monster, D3. So this will even the playing field into infantry, and there's some other abilities where you can splash some wounds in there as well. One thing I like before we move on is I like that they're showing us a bunch of different war scrolls. They kind of are forced to because there's only like 8 war scrolls, 7 war scrolls in the entire army, but it's cool because we can get a really good picture of how this army is going to function just by looking at the faction focus. Now all you have to do is go spend $800 to collect this army. That's the hard part.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. All right. Going on to our battle formations, we have the Taker Tribe. More stuff for me collection. Pick a friendly non-unique Sons of Behemat hero and give them an extra artifact of power from the Titanic trophies. This is pretty nice when you see what the Titanic trophies are. The other ones are going to have some stuff that has extra defense. Stomper Tribe can, I guess, get extra spammy attacks, and boss tribes that buff the little guys. Their artifacts of power. We have the Amberbone Totem. For the rest of the turn, this unit can use charge even if it ran, which is great for Gargants. Glowy Lantern, you can summon a manifestation as if it was a wizard, which is awesome. That's a whole...
Yeah, so you can pick... yeah, go ahead.
It's a whole lore, right?
Right. So you can have a lot of fun with endless spells with them now. You can be like, I'm going to pick this manifestation lore, and then it has all these tools that it can use, which is good. They're not very good at casting, though, with no buffs or anything like that, but Glowy Lantern is fun. I really like it.
Yep.
You get to just play with endless spells. Why not?
Yep. And then Mantle of Tusk and Horns for the rest of the turn. Add once per battle. Okay, these are all once per battle.
Correct.
It's good to note. So far. For the rest of the turn, add 1 to the hit rolls for combat attacks made by friendly Sons of Behemat unit while they were wholly within 12. So that's an extra all-out attack on top of all attack if you need to. That's all right. Sounds pretty good.
Yeah, once per battle is sad, but it's like a wah. It's like a mega gargant wah. They just all go or like whatever sound they make.
Yeah.
You know, pick your sound. Like
ladle.
You know, they probably sound kind of like whales, but not as bad. Anyway, yeah, you get to use an ability once per battle. I'm not hot on once per battle abilities.
Yeah. Yep.
So, but yeah, now we're gonna get into some passives though.
Passives.
I really like passives.
+1 to the attacks and rend and damage of this unit's Almighty Stomp or Almightier Stomp. That sounds like something you just take.
I just have higher damage output.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah,
all around.
That one's great.
Yeah.
That might be an auto include. Yeah.
Yeah. Especially for, we'll see, there's some stompy guys up ahead. Glowy Shield of Protectiveness. Each time you make an auto-modified save roll of 6, inflict 1 mortal damage to the attacker. So this used to be like a 6 of ward, I think, right? And now it's
you reduce rend 1 to 0, and then you have the same ability. So it's just dumbed down, which is great because it's for Mega Gargants, and they're just like, Durr.
Yeah.
Is that what they sound like? Do you think that I did it justice? Right okay, we're just
King Slaughter Cow.
Anyway,
add 1 to the attack.
You're moving me on. Are you rushing me? I feel like that's the cane, like grabbing me by the neck and pulling me off stage. Okay, King Slaughter Cow. Add 1 to the attacks characteristic of this unit's melee weapons while this unit is in combat with an enemy hero. That's fun. So you just get extra attacks against heroes. So can they take multiple artifacts still? Is that what the detachment was? My brain turned off for 10 seconds.
The detachment is, yeah.
Beautiful. So 1 does extra rend damage and attacks with the special Almighty Stomp or Almightier Stomp, and then 1 of them does this. So then they have roles, right? 1 is going to be offensive against heroes, and 1 is just going to be more offensive. I like it. I don't like the once per battles very much.
Quick question, David. Can you hear my upstairs neighbor playing his music really loudly on your end?
No.
Okay.
I'll let you know if I start hearing it.
All right. I'm thinking about the stream here.
We're having a hard time getting a look at god models, but I guess King Broad is kind of a god model because he is the leader of the Mega Gargants.
He's godly, at least. He's a priest. So there's that. He looks pretty godlike.
Control of 20. That's good.
Control 20. 40
Their
health.
base is big enough to stand on an objective, and then you can't touch it, which is interesting because their bases are so large. 10-inch move.
10-inch move. 4-up.
I get a little sad about the whole monster profile thing because we're looking at army-wide 4+ to hit, but to be honest, we were looking at that on a lot of their profiles anyway. But the wounds are chef's kiss.
Yeah.
Like, you just get through the hit roll and you know about how much damage you're going to do. He's a beast. 6 attacks, 4s, 2s, neg 2, 5. That's what we call strong. That's some high damage output. The Almighty Stomp, keep in mind that you can have 1 extra attack with +1 to random damage with this. 2 attacks, 4s, 2s, -2 D3. And look, it's anti-infantry +1 rend. So that means that if you take that artifact, that it's -4 rend, D3 +1 damage with 3 attacks.
Yep.
That's a spicy meatball. So I like that. The Death Grip is 1 attack, and it's for killing heroes. 4 to hit, 2 to wound, -2 D6, and extra rend against heroes. So -3 rend, D6 damage. That's pretty good on foot heroes that have 4 and 5+ saves. So
Yep.
that's fun.
It just seems like the way to deal with Gargants is just make sure they don't hit you, because once they hit you, you're pretty much dead.
Yes. After he's taken 15 damage, his Obelisk is going to lose 2 attacks, so it's going to bring it down to what it normally is at this point, 4 attacks. And then his control characteristic goes down to 10. So that's not that's kind of sad. I was saying that brackets are not as punishing anymore, but once you do 15 damage to this guy, it cuts his control score in half. So that's hard. How about his hero phase Power of Behemat? You want to read through what his chants do?
Power of Behemat is a chant on a 5. Pick one of the following effects. If it was a 10+, pick 2. Shatter the mountains. Add 2 inches to the move characteristics of Friendly Sons of Behemat for the rest of the turn. Might of the Earth. Heal D3 for each Friendly Sons of Behemat unit. Pubble all to dust for the rest of the turn. Add 1 to rend characteristics. Well, there's more rend on the Obelisk of Torcrania, Meter Club, Fort Crusher, all the big things that they're using by. So you can get him to rend 3/5 damage, which is pretty incredible on 6 attacks.
Yes.
Yeah, and any sort of source of healing for Sons of Behemat is pretty handy as well.
Yeah, so these abilities used to go off on a 3-up, and then you'd get a +1 to the chanting roll if you had killed an enemy monster. So, but you could only pick each ability once per battle until the end of the turn, and it affected your whole army. So now you can pick it multiple times per battle, but it only affects 1 or 2 units. It just means that it has more utility, and I take more utility over having to decide which battle round to use abilities in and then have it maybe not go off anyway, any day. Yeah. Now the cast is 5, so just expect this to be a battle round 2 through 5 thing that you do. You might get lucky and get it off in the first, but I would rather toe onto some objectives, wait until you've got some air power points or whatever the heck they're called, I'm blanking, and then unleash your might when people finally decide that they have to come take those objectives from you in the second and the third battle round. So that's pretty cool. Creepers, these are the little dudes chilling on him. Absolutely love the little models. They just hang out with him and clean his teeth and his ears or something, whatever they do. It's like that little bird on the back of a rhino. That's how I look at it. This unit cannot be picked as a target of rampages. Great.
Yep.
That's great.
Some pretty good rampages out there.
Yes, pretty good rampages out there, and I think that used to be a 2+ can't do monstrous actions.
That's even better.
So it's just better. Yeah, that's great. And then his other passive, if this unit would be automatically destroyed, it is not automatically destroyed. Instead, you just take 6 damage points to it. That's just so somebody can't auto-slay your Mega Gargant and then you cry and go home because you spent $200 on it, and then you spent 45 hours painting it, and then you tried to play with your new model, and it got clapped off the table by a hand of dust. So I'm guessing that passive is on every War Scroll, and if it is, we'll just skip right over it. And then the other one is Longshanks. This unit can pass through models if non-monster units and parts of terrain features that are less than 4 inches tall. So they can just walk over things, which makes sense because they're towering tall. And if they're monsters, you can't do that. And if the terrain is too big, you can't do that.
Yep.
That is also,
Yeah, there's a meta for the height of terrain. So if people are using like pillars for the terrain, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Make sure that all of the terrain is 4.5 inches tall.
Yes.
You're good to go. I think Sons of Behemat get screwed by people placing terrain more frequently than other armies because of just the nature of how that army is played. So the fact that we have presets for different battle plans and that they have a little bit more utility in some of their abilities is fantastic. They are not a damage army. They look like they do damage, but they don't do as much damage as you think because of that 4+ ceiling. But looking pretty good so far.
Yeah, because there's only 4 of them doing this crazy damage.
Right. Yeah.
Yep. All right, on to the Gatebreaker. So this guy's not broad, so he has 5 less wounds. Otherwise, he's the same. Hurled Boulder, 1 shot, 4 damage, Rin 3, 3s and 2s. Decently reliable, but still kind of memey.
Yeah, I like how you read that backwards, by the way. It's the same. It's about the same. You all out attack, you get it to 2s and 2s. And then if you don't roll a 1, you typically will do 4 damage. It's great. It's fine.
He's basically the same profile as Broad, but his thing does 4 damage instead of 5, and it's anti-faction terrain, which is an interesting keyword. So he'll be wrecking my shipwrecks.
He can bust up some terrains real good.
Yeah, that's one of those abilities that like is not going to be used that much until that one guy's like, yeah, I get to do my thing.
Yeah, totally. The interesting thing about this is you used to have an ability where if you sunder a piece of terrain or if you destroy a piece of terrain with Smash to Rubble, then all of the units around it and within it take damage. So they have streamlined that into just a silly ability that you're right. Like sometimes it won't come up, but sometimes it'll be really fun. Like maybe I destroy that tree and cut you off from half of the board because you're playing Sylvaneth, something like that, you know? So there's some play there or whatever. Or if you just don't have anything to do because you're standing on the flank and everything's dead over there, you can just swing at terrain and make the game longer. Just doing things that aren't really impactful to the game. That's pretty funny. Almighty Stomp, same. Anti-infantry +1 Ren, Death Grip, same. Anti-hero +1 Ren. So you're gonna see some similarities with this army. Battle damage. The flail goes down to 4. The control goes down to 10 after it's taken 15 wounds. Very similar.
Everything else is the same with the Sons of Behemat and Longshanks.
Yep. And then for Pulverizing Strike, pick an enemy unit in combat with this unit to be the target. This unit can make a pile-in move, then roll a dice. On a 4+, inflict 4d6 mortal damage on the target. Interestingly enough, this
just happens. Yeah, you don't have to.
Just happens. You don't have to do it instead of fighting.
Yeah, so you do both. You could wipe out one unit, then make a pile-in move, and then on a 4-up do a blizzard on them. But it is the keyword core attack and fight. They might have a way of mitigating it there somewhere. Because like it's considered.
If you can fight and you can do 4d6, that's great.
Yeah.
Maybe you can only use one fight ability. I'm guessing that's too strong. Let's just say that he can't do that. Let's just say that it's just as swingy as it's always been. And instead of doing reliable damage with his 6 attacks that are -2 Ren 4 damage, you're like, yeah, I'm just going to try to do 46. And then you roll a 3. And that happens all the time. I've played Sons of Behemat. I've probably played at least a dozen games with them, I'm guessing. I have gotten Pulverizing Strike to happen once. And I think it did 9 mortal wounds.
Wow.
9 mortal wounds. So this melee weapon profile is much better. But if you're playing into something like Annihilators and you're like, I'm not going to do any damage, even with my high red, why don't I just try to clap them? That's kind of fun, right?
Yep.
It's very memey, but the threat is there, which is kind of interesting. I think psychologically people kind of dance around the Gatebreaker. So if you mid-board him, it gives you a lot of board control, even if he's not on an objective.
Yeah. Well, there was that Season of War battle report where he did do 24 mortal wounds just right off the bat, which is pretty fun to see.
That's fun.
Yeah.
I love that.
All right, and then Smash Down. Pick a terrain feature within 3 inches. If it's a faction terrain, inflict D3 +3 mortal damage on it. Then roll a dice for each non-monster unit within 3 of that target. On a 2-up, inflict the amount of mortal damage. So you smash the boat and you scatter the pieces within 3 inches and do D3 mortal wounds on a 2-up to all those units.
He hates terrain even more. He still kept that ability,
Yeah,
so that's
he
kind of cool.
really likes to break gates. Who didn't thunk it?
Yes, and then your Fort Crusher flail can finish it off. You can like split your attacks and do 2 Fort Crusher flails into the trees
Yeah.
if it's not dead yet. That's great. How thematic and fun.
Yes.
Smash that like button. Oh wait, it's not YouTube. Subscribe or follow or however that works.
Yeah.
Okay, next.
All right, the War Stomper. So he has the same profile. Titanic Boulder Club. 4 attacks, 4s, 2s, rend 2, damage 2. Anti-infantry +1 rend. And his Almighty Stomp, which is 4 attacks, 4s, 2s, rend 2, damage D3. So some of those attacks got moved into his Stomp. And his Death Grip, as usual. And
This guy is gonna obliterate infantry, dude. So if he takes that artifact, he's got 5 attacks, 4s, 2s, neg 4, D3 +1 into infantry, and then the Titanic Boulder Club. That's great. I love it.
Yeah.
Shall we read about the Titanic Boulder Club next?
Yes. So all his passives are the same. But his other passive, Titanic Boulder Club, if all attacks are made target the same enemy unit, for every 5 models in the target unit, add 2 to its attack characteristic for the rest of the phase. Yeah, so you bring this guy in, he could really wreck some rats with this. Plus the monstrous action, all sorts of stuff.
I'm thinking more of like elite infantry.
True.
Like that have a 3-up save, and you're like, well, you have 5s to save this, and you don't have a save against this. So let's say he fights 10 of something, right? He's got 8 attacks on an all-out attack, 3s, 2s, neg 3, 2. That's 16 damage if you roll hot. And then he's got that almightier stomp thing. Bro, he could just smash some elite infantry. Like, our Annihilator is going to have infantry keyword. That's a good way to get around that 2+
I'm sure
save.
they will, yeah.
So, bidding a roll. I'm digging that Games Workshop is following what they were going to say that they were going to do. And they're like, we're going to analyze units and we're going to give them a roll. And the keywords are pretty easy to follow. We still have some answers that need to be given to us when we see the core rulebook, but it's looking like this game is going to be fast and furious. I think that it's less lethal in some ways, and I think that it's more lethal and fast-paced in other ways. So I'm digging it.
Yeah, it's going to be like super rock, paper, scissors in some ways.
Yes, because there's countercharge and stuff like that, like with Mega Gargants, like getting a Gatebreaker in your face when you don't want it there, that kind of stuff. Pretty cool. He's got another one ability called Hurled Body.
Yep, pick an enemy unit, pick a die, roll a dice. If it's at least double the target's health characteristic, slay 1 model in that unit, and then pick a visible enemy unit within 12 and inflict the amount of mortal damage equal to the target's health characteristic. So you pick up a dude and yeet him at another unit. Which
That's
is on
the
a
same.
Yeah, on a 4-up into Stormcast or something, on a 2-up into regular infantry.
Pretty good. It's the same. Okay. Yep. What else do we got? Are we going to get to see Man Crushers? Oh,
Here's
yes.
the Man Crushers. They do not have the passive abilities. That's different. I thought that they would have like a different they would have smaller Longshanks, but they don't have Longshanks.
No, they're the same too. Keep up. Well, this unit is wholly within 12 inches of a friendly Mega Gargant. It can charge after it ran. So it was a little bit harder to set up before. I think it was sub-faction locked. So that's great. Maybe it wasn't sub-faction locked. Whatever. They're mid, but they're pretty fun if there's just one of them. Because they're just like they're stupid, silly screens, but they're actually they do fair damage. They're slow at 8 inches, not quite as fast. 12 health, 5+ save, 10 control, which is good. They've got a rock.
A rock.
5 to hit.
5
to hit.
5 to hit.
It's never going to do anything. 2s to wound, neg 2, D3, no special ability. And then no special abilities on the melee weapons. They have walked down this war scroll so much. I love it. You could take just a bunch of these and just be like, just playing like the easiest game of Warhammer you've ever played. Massive club. Everything hits on 4s. Everything hits on 2s. The club is -1 rend 2 damage. The Edbutt is 1 attack, -2 4. So if it goes through, that's great. And then your Mighty Kick is 4s 2s, -2 rend D3.
Yep.
So it's fun that you get to roll the dice separately. Like they could have just been like all of their abilities or all of their melee weapons and had you roll like 6 dice. But they're just a tiny little bit different. One has a little bit more rend, one is D3 instead of 4, whatever. They're about the same. And then they've got Stuff 'em in Me Bag where they can slay a model. It's very similar to World Body. You roll a dice, and if it's double, then you just put it in your bag and hold on to it. It's a little miniature for you to play with at home. I like them. I like them. They are overshadowed by the Mega Gargants, which makes sense because the Mega Gargants are cooler, and these models are very old. But yeah, they're cool.
Yep. And that's them. It's got the same War Scroll, same profile, pretty much.
They get Timber, which they had
Timber.
anyway.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Okay. The same. Let's do one more. Why don't I love OBR, so we'll do it. But why don't we hang on to the Daughters of Cain faction focus until next week when Michael is here? Because that is one of his armies that he loves, and I'd love to hear what he has to say about it.
All right. Cool. Let's go through the battle traits. Could you go through these? I'm going to be right back in 30 seconds as well.
Absolutely. I'll go ahead and talk through battle traits, and I'll let everybody know how things have changed. So we have 2 abilities that we can use in the movement phase. We'll read on Unstoppable Advance first. If no friendly units have used an ability already this phase, pick a friendly Bone Reaper hero to use this ability. All friendly Bone Reaper units wholly within 12 of this hero are the target. So all of your friendly units wholly within 12 are going to get to add 2 to their move characteristic for the rest of the turn. This used to be add 3, but this is add 2 to the move characteristic, and it doesn't say normal move, which means that you can run with a +2, which is great. That means that their movement is fantastic. And then we have reform ranks in the movement phase. For the rest of the turn, while they are wholly within 12 inches of a hero that you choose, friendly Ossiarch Bonereaper units can use charge abilities even if they use retreat. So that's a retreat and charge ability. That used to be a healing ability that nobody ever used because their healing is already so good and it was situational. So I like that. Retreat and charge is great. And then in the charge phase, we've got 2 of them. Coordinated charge. Pick a friendly Ossiarch Bonereaper hero to use this ability. For the rest of the turn, add 1 to charge rolls for friendly Bone Reapers units while they're wholly within 12 of the hero. So if you have a fast-moving hero like an Archon or a Liege Cavalos, you could add 2 inches to their move, and then you could charge on a +1. That's pretty good. Counter-Strike. Pick a Bone Reaper hero to use this ability. For the rest of the turn, friendly units' melee weapons have anti-charge +1 rend. So instead of counter charge, they have counter strike. If you charge into them, they can get a +1 rend to anything that charges them. That's good. And then we'll do combat. So bludgeon. Pick a friendly Bone Reaper hero to use this ability. For the rest of the turn, add 1 to wound rolls for combat attacks made with Bone Reapers units while they're wholly within 12. +1 to wound is fantastic. And then impenetrable ranks. Bone Reaper hero to use this ability. You can see a trend here. For the rest of the turn, Bone Reaper units have a ward of 5+ while they're wholly within 12 of that hero. So a laundry list of different abilities that you can do. They're not commands. They're just abilities. And the way that they have offset that is that you have to have heroes in range of these units to make these abilities happen.
Yep. Yeah. I personally like that it's not like these commands that can pop up anywhere. Like they are more limited than they were before.
Right. And you're going to know what your opponent can do if you're playing against Bone Reapers, which means that you can plan around some of these things, but you can't plan around some of them too. Like, I'm probably going to take an extra pip of rend to all of the attacks that are coming back into me if I charge into this unit. I'm probably going to have to fight some Necropolis Stalkers that have a bunch of attacks, and I know they're going to be +1 to wound. And if they can add different abilities to that, then they'll stack, and the list goes on. So Bone Reapers is it's a lot more difficult to play a Bone Reaper's army than you think, because you have to understand when to use which tool out of your Swiss Army knife and how to maximize your damage output. Because they're hyper elite, a lot of the time you will have half of the models that your opponent has, so you have to learn how to play that way. And I like these. I think it's fun. I've played through 2 different battle tomes, and now this is going to be coming into play, so I've gotten to play the army multiple different ways. It's always been very powerful and intimidating army to play against, even when it wasn't on top of the meta in second and late second edition and early third edition. It was still a very difficult army to play into, because they are just surprisingly tanky and surprisingly damaging if you're playing against somebody that knows what they're doing. So I like those abilities. They're not an upgrade. They're not a buff or a nerf. I think they are just different, and they're going to be really fun to play.
Yep, it's similar to the cities where it's nerfed from before, but it's going to be a lot simpler, a lot easier to use. All right, simple battle formation here. Mortise and Council +1 to casting rolls for OBR infantry wizards. So not Arcan, but everybody else.
Yay!
Yeah,
That is a very fun battle formation. I love it. It's so good. It's so simple.
yep.
Cool. Moving on.
The other ones include the masked Mortec crawler. So a Mortec crawler battle formation is pretty fun. And then cavalry and Mortec guard.
Yeah. So there's a different battle formation for your 5 different units, which is great. This is their unlimited spell.
Empower Netherite weapons. On a 5, pick a friendly unit within 12 and wholly within, no, just within 12, not even wholly within. Critical hits on a 5-up.
Yeah. So like Arcan can be like, you're doing crits on 5s, and you're doing crits on 5s, and you're doing crits on 5s, and then 80 more tech guard charge into you. That's kind of good. That can be kind of good. So yeah, I like it. That's a good unlimited spell to just be able to hand out some buffs.
Yeah.
Great.
And I forget if unlimited, can the same wizard cast unlimited more than once?
I don't know. Probably not. Probably what I said didn't actually make sense, but we'll find out.
I just want to teleport my wizards twice.
Right? Just bounce around the board.
Yeah.
Okay. So here's a model that nobody ever uses and that I have and haven't painted, because they can't figure out how to get his war scroll right. So let's go through the war scroll and see what you think, Andrew.
All right. 5-inch move, 5 health, 2 control, and a 4-up save. With his Gaze of Death, 1 attack, 3s, 2s, 1, 2.
That's a sad profile.
That's a bad profile.
Moving on.
That's a meme attack that's not even worth memeing. Melee weapons, Staff of Retribution, 4s, 3s, 1, 2. Crit 2 hits.
Exploding 6s. Wow. They're pretty good so far. Okay. Once per battle, you can do this.
All right. Voice of Nagash. Pick a visible enemy unit within 12 for the rest of the turn. Non-fight core abilities cost 1 command point for the target to use. So that's moving, shooting, all sorts of that 46. Yeah, all sorts of other little abilities. So you basically just shut down 1 enemy unit for 1 turn, which is pretty.
Yeah, he's a little baby Bellacore.
Yeah, baby.
You have to get within 12. But that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that can really mess up something that's like coordinated into him.
Yes.
Yep.
Let's read Mortal Contract. It's a special war scroll spell. Pick a visible enemy unit. Mortal Contract. I almost said combat. I see what you were doing there. Okay. Pick a visible enemy unit within 18 inches of this unit to be bound. Pick a visible friendly Ossiarch Bonereapers unit wholly within 18 inches of this unit to be bound, then make a roll. So Good unit, bad unit, roll. Cool. Until the start of your next turn, each time the bound friendly unit is picked to be the target of an ability used by the bound enemy unit, roll a d3. On a 2+, inflict an amount of mortal damage on the bound enemy. So here's what happens. You pick an enemy unit, and then you pick a friendly unit, and whenever the friendly unit does any damage in any way, you roll a dice, and then they take an extra little splash of mortal wounds. That's fun. It's very wordy. That's a very wordy
Yeah, that was a lot of words.
spell. I hope that you are tracking, all of you that are watching this. So yeah, roll down. I want to see his. Let's see his keywords.
He does cast twice, which is cool.
Okay, he cast twice, 6-up ward. I will take this hero if he is 140 points or less. The baby Nagash spell is cute, but the problem with Bonereapers and the reason you never take him is because every unit that you pick is extremely important, and you don't really have a whole lot of room for error with list building. It's like, okay, I filled out my battle line, I've got my hammer, I've got my really expensive heroes that buff my army and heal my army, and then I've got this many points left. So he's cool. He's cool for casual play. I don't know how impactful he would be in a competitive scenario.
I don't like him when I have an Akhelian King with a mortal contract, and potentially Voice of Nagash, although usually the Akhelian King can be like far away.
I don't know. Let's see what Immortus Guard do in the long run. If you can keep this guy safe and you can use him to do something silly late game or to do something early game to stop some battle tactics or some objective control, then yeah, I don't know. You'd have to get pretty creative. I'm not a super high level player. I'm kind of like a medium player, so I don't think I'm going to be fitting him into my list.
Yeah, he does get 2 casts that can be +1 with that one sub faction. So
okay, that's pretty okay. Go down to this guy's keywords just right now so I can see. He's still a wizard too, and he's probably still better than Vokmordian, but let's read about it. I'll read this one. He's got a 5-inch move because he has a chair with legs. 6 health and 4+ save, which is the same as before. His control is 2. His Soul Mason staff has exploding 6s with a phenomenal profile of 4s, -1 d3. You're going to be doing massive amounts of damage with him and making all of your opponents cry, which is awkward, so take that with a grain of salt. The Mortek Throne's Ossified Claws. 2 attacks, 5s to hit, 4s to wound, and it never does any damage. And then he has Soul Guide. Soul Guide has been changed 4 times, so let's read what it does now. Pick a friendly, visible Bonereaper unit wholly within 12 of this caster, then make a casting roll of 2d6. The target has strike first. That's strong. So, Andrew, would you take Vokmordian, or would you take a guy that can hand out strike first to not multiple units, to 1 unit? What do you think?
I mean, I know what strike first does, and yeah, I just take strike first. It's just simple, straightforward. Just do that.
Right. So the only way that people are going to put him in the army is if they have the points, or they don't own the Soul Mason, I feel like. This is, I mean, the Soul Mason, the reason I like this model so much, not only does it look cool, it's one of my favorite models that I painted early on in my painting career, if you will, is that it just always has a role to fill, and I like that. It does this very specific thing. Now it's going to make your units strike first, which is great.
Yeah,
I love it.
The other guy, his role is like janky. Like maybe you could do something with it, but it's like it's for if you want to be clever, maybe you could do that. All right, Necropolis Stalkers. 6-inch move, 4 health, 4 save, 1 control. I think that's the same as before. Yep.
Well, they used to have 5 health.
5 health.
They used to have 5. They had 5 health for 6 months.
Yeah.
I remember for 1 year.
I remember trying to deal with units of 6 of these guys, and it was miserable.
Yeah, and these weren't the tanky ones.
Yeah.
Their Stalker Blades have been doled down a little bit. They have doled down. See what I did there? 4 attacks, 3s, neg 2/1 with exploding 6s. That's pretty good. That's pretty reliable. You know what you're going to get out of that. which is good. But then the reason that these guys are super fun is because they have the quadrarch aspects, which means that you get to pick different fighting stances. So in the combat phase, you get to pick one of the following effects to apply. Subtract 3 from control scores. We're seeing big themes with subtracting from control scores. So going back to Deepkin, way at the beginning of this talk, that's going to be very nice for you. Okay, so that's strong. That's strong because you can pick it in any combat phase. So if you need to turn off objective control to keep somebody from getting more objectives than you, that's great. There's just a lot of different ways that you can use that, and it's going to be very helpful. Blade parry aspect is subtract 1 from hit rolls that target this unit. So you make a -1 to hit, they stick around for a little bit longer. That's the defensive one that you pick. Destroyer, you really need to clap something off the board, so ward rolls cannot be made for damage points inflicted by this unit's combat attacks. So that's 2 of my mains that have very easy abilities to take away wards from people. So I'm pretty happy with that. I'm pretty stoked. That's obviously that has some huge ramifications for things that have wards like Gotrek and other things. So precision aspect, this unit's melee weapons have anti-hero +1 rend while they're in combat with an enemy hero. So they're single damage, but if you've got 6 of them, just Tokyo drift into a hero with their 3-inch range, because everything's 3-inch range now, you're looking at 24 attacks that are -3 rend. So they're going to clap heroes pretty good.
Yep.
A monster hero is going to take a lot of damage from these guys.
Yep. They're basically
Turning
Gotrek
off
hunters.
ward. Yeah, they're really cool, and you don't have to kit them with the giant falchions anymore, and you don't have to decide if you're going to do that or not anymore.
Yep.
So you can just have one that looks cool, but it has the same attack. So the dice is the same. You don't have to worry about positioning because of the range of the giant swords versus the falchions. So I love this war scroll. I think that destroyer aspect losing the extra 1 damage is offset by the fact that you're going to be turning off wards with -2 rend attacks.
Yeah.
So they're bomb.
Yeah,
I would say they're great.
Yeah, they look awesome, and I like that the ward abilities that we've seen are not in a place where that's the only thing they do, because that's kind of one of the problems you see sometimes, like the Leth's Prayer or something like that, where that's the only thing that you do. That turning off wards is situational, so seeing it in abilities where you can pick it, but you don't have to, is pretty awesome.
Yeah. Chris in chat is talking about how turning off wards is super good. It's not super good for the person who's relying on wards for their army, but you're right. And I feel like it might be a little bit more prevalent in this edition because we've already seen it in a couple faction focuses, but we'll have to wait and see. I'm hot on it. I like the Mortrek Crawler. I've already looked at it, and I'm just going to say that now. Is it okay if I read through this, Andrew?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, it has a 5-inch move. It no longer has a minimum distance because if it's in combat, it can't shoot anyway. But that means that it can shoot things that are 4 inches away from it, which is nice. It has 12 health, a 4+ save, and it has 5 control. That's kind of cool that you could put 2 artillery pieces on your back objective and shoot, and then actually hold an objective too. So that's great. The Dread Catapult has 24-inch range, 4 attacks, 4s, 2s, so swingy like a catapult should be. -1 rend, D3 +2 damage. So we're boosting the reliability of the damage output. You get those attacks through, you're going to get a fair amount of damage back. You're +1 to rend against anti-infantry, so bump that up to rend 2, D3 +2, and then it has crit. So if you're rolling 6s to hit with the catapult, it's going to do extra damage. I think that we're going to see some magical damage come out of catapults from time to time, and they're just a little bit more useful. And then the crawler tools are terrible. You don't ever want this thing in combat. If it's in combat, it's not doing its job anymore. And they're probably going to be 200 points like they have been in the past, so just keep that in mind. And they have a shooting phase ability called Deathly Barrage. Pick an enemy unit that was targeted by all of this unit's shooting attacks this phase to be the target. Roll a dice, add 1 to the roll if this unit is wholly within 12 of a Mortesian Os Effector. So that's how they're going to make you take the Os Effector, which is another reason that you'll never take Vokmordian. Add 1 to the roll if any other friendly Mortek Crawler units pick that enemy unit to be the target of this ability. On a 4+, the target has strike last for the rest of the turn.
Yep.
So you spread the love with 2 different crawlers into multiple different units, whilst keeping an Oss Effector wholly within 12 of them, and then you can just fish for 4-ups. And then make things strike last. Then you can cast a spell with your Soul Mason to make something strike first, and then your whole army is going to get to fight.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
high tide for Bone Reapers kind of situation. You've got to set it up. You got to take the catapults and your 2 little foot heroes. And then with your other 800 points that you have left after that, you can try to put together a strong enough hammer to do the damage.
Yeah.
It's cool, man. I like how they just keep trying to make this catapult work, and like I have 2 of them, and I just take them anyway, even if they suck, because they're just cool. I mean, I like to take the catapults to RTs and then just like make a wagon wheel of screens around them so people can't lock them down. I give this thematically, I give this War Scroll an A+, and in practice, I give it like a B+. The strike last thing is great.
Yeah.
Just being able to have one of those to threaten that. Check this out. Shoot in the enemy's turn and make it strike last. And be like, do you still want to charge into my Necropolis Stalkers? Will they turn off your ward? Will you strike last?
Yep.
Like there's some funny things that I'm already thinking about because I know the mechanics of this army pretty well. I've played it multiple years now, and it's just putting a smile on my face. It's not as 2-dimensional anymore, just from looking at a couple War Scrolls. So I hope that the rest of the index looks great.
Yeah. And it seems
I'm hot on the catapult, dude.
Yeah. There's that wall that everybody wants, but nobody can get. And it seems like that they're handing out strikes first, strike last to a lot of different armies. They're trying to give everybody just a little taste of that. So that'll that mitigates some of the
I feel like
effects
it's like when you're a little kid and you're like, I stab you, and then the other little kid is like, oh, I have a shield, and you're like, well, I have a sword that penetrates your armor, and you're like, no, not this armor. It's made out of Valerian steel or whatever. You know what I'm saying? You're like, it is like rock paper scissorsy. It's like I do this before you do that, and that's fun because it's engaging for both your opponent and you while you're playing the turn, and then you're like not sure if you want to take the double turn anymore because even if you lose 2 points in a tournament, it can be impactful. And if you're hemorrhaging points and then trying to do damage and then it's not happening, you're gonna have a bad time. So
Yep. That's why you always bring the anti-everything shield to those fights as a kid.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's what Gotrek will have. He'll have anti-everything.
Anti-everything shield.
Will be his keywords.
You can't do anything with me. Like last little taster is the Cavalous Death Rider Spearhead version. It looks like they do mortal wounds on the charge. They can fly across enemy infantry. Just generally, which is crazy. So they can get past screens pretty well. And with a 10-inch move, you're not necessarily going to get past much, but yeah, you got to be careful screening them out.
Well, they have a 12-inch move if you use that Relentless ability.
That's true. And
then if they have any way to run and charge like they have before, then that could be fun. Death Rider Wedge, the damage is terrible compared to what it used to be. It used to be mortals on 5s. Even if for every inch you charged, even if you only had 1 Death Rider left. So it was really fun to take MSU like 4 units and just charge stuff and see if you could do some chip damage and just kind of tear smaller units apart. And then they were just really hard to kill. They're still going to be really hard to kill. I'm sure that that Catacross is going to have very similar ability to what he already has because that's kind of like his identity.
Yeah.
Naderite Spears at 3 attacks, 3s, 4s, -1 Ren, 1 damage with a +1 damage on the charge is good. And then it looks like they're taking crits out of their melee weapon ability. That might be a spearhead thing, or it might be a battle trait or something.
Yeah.
We've already looked at the battle traits, but we'll see. I mean, they don't all have to have exploding sixes, but it was pretty fun in the last edition.
Yeah.
They are fine. They're largely unchanged. The steeds are terrible now, but that's a theme. Like if you're sad that your horses aren't hitting with their hooves as hard, then just realize that everybody else's horses aren't hitting hard with their hooves anymore either.
Yep.
So
Yep. Yep. No
the
more.
spear, they will have a spear and sword option still probably. I'm guessing that in 40K they have you with your combat patrols. They say give your war gear to a unit, and that's what it has in the combat patrol. So I think Spearhead's going to be kind of the same. They're going to be like, in Spearhead you have spears. But I think they'll still have the
sword. Yeah.
Yeah. Otherwise, it would say assortment of Naderite weapons.
Yeah.
Right. But this says spear.
Yeah.
And they're not going to piss off 1,000 people by saying you can't use your swords anymore and you didn't keep your bits on sprue to swap them out for spears and then repaint them. Or maybe they will. I mean, I wouldn't put it past them, but I doubt it.
Yeah.
B- for the Cavalos Death Riders. They do their role that they've always done, just worse.
Mm-hmm. All right. And, David, my friend, just joined the chat, and he really loves Daughters of Cain.
Yeah, he does, but he's going to have to wait for next week when we cover Morathi Cain and the Daughters of Cain.
Tune in next time.
Love you, Dragoon. It's like we're going to find out who won, but first, let's go look at some terrible commercials.
All right.
Hashtag feels bad, man. We're going to start that.
We've been doing this for 2 hours now. It's pretty crazy.
Yes. If I had more time, then I wouldn't be making a stop the stream. But Michael is really going to want to talk about Morathi and the Daughters of Cain. So let's save that for next week, and we'll have a bunch of other faction focuses to catch up on, which will be a lot of fun.
All right. All right. With that, anything else happening on the channel, David, before we tune things out?
Nothing more than I've already talked about.
All right.
A lot of stuff, a lot of fun videos, and just big plans for 4th edition. Thank you to all of the members who are hanging out, still watching our videos, still continuing to be members on YouTube. It's helping keep our revenue together because our viewership is down quite a bit, obviously because the new edition is starting soon. Our revenue is more than 80% coming from members. So thank you to all of you. Anybody that's watching this, really do appreciate it. And if you want to consider becoming a member or supporting Twitch or YouTube in any way to help us out, that's fantastic.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us, everybody. Thanks for joining us, Chris. And we'll catch you all next Monday. Bye-bye.